It begins with saying, "This is who I am, and no label can hold me." There's something you need to understand. Greatness was never meant to be requested. You weren't born to ask the world for approval before you rise. And yet, most of us spend our lives waiting for someone to say yes, for circumstances to be perfect, for permission that never comes. But what if I told you, you don't need permission to be great? You never did. You just forgot. We're told to follow the rules, fit in, wait our turn, be patient, be polite, don't speak too loudly, don't stand out too much, don't take risks unless someone more qualified gives you the green light. And slowly, day by day, we start to believe a lie so subtle, so socially accepted, that we don't even question it. If you want to be great, you need permission. Permission from your parents, permission from your boss, permission from society, permission from a system that was never built for your greatness. This lie wraps itself in tradition and wears the face of logic. Hit the degree first, prove yourself, earn your stripes, wait until someone notices you. But here's the bitter truth. Most people spend their whole lives waiting, and they die waiting. Waiting to be seen, waiting to be picked, waiting for someone to open the door for them and say, "Now you're worthy." That door, it was never locked. You just believed it was. And the person holding the key, it's been you all along. Let me tell you something real, something raw. Greatness does not come from permission. It comes from decision. The decision to stop asking, the decision to stop playing small, the decision to stop needing validation to become who you were always meant to be. Because the truth is, you could be everything they told you you weren't. Allowed to be bold, brave, loud, legendary, but you've been programmed to shrink, to second-guess, to ask for the very thing that was already yours, your destiny. Think about it. How many dreams have been buried because someone waited for permission? How many gifts never saw the light of day because their owners didn't believe they had the right to use them without applause? You don't need a title to lead. You don't need a platform to speak truth. You don't need a following to walk in purpose. You don't need permission to be great. And this leads us to the most defining moment of your life, one that often comes not with celebration, but with pain. It's a quiet moment. It doesn't come with fireworks. It usually shows up after you've been knocked down for the 5th or 15th time. You're sitting in the dark, maybe alone, maybe heartbroken, maybe at rock bottom. You've waited long enough, waited for someone to show up and tell you it's okay to go for it, waited for someone to say, "You've got what it takes," waited for the world to finally see your worth. But it never came. And finally, in the silence, something clicks. No one's coming. And if I don't move, nothing changes. That moment, that is not defeat. That is birth. The birth of ownership, the birth of responsibility, the birth of the warrior inside you. Because when you finally stop looking outward, when you finally stop waiting for the system, the people, the world to open a door that you were always meant to build yourself, you stop being a victim. You stop being a spectator, and you step into the arena of your own life. It hurts. Yes, it's lonely. Yes, it's terrifying. Absolutely. But it's also liberating. Because for the first time, you're not pretending anymore. You're not waiting anymore. You're not asking anymore. You're moving. You're not just surviving. You're building, not just hoping. You're creating. Not just existing. You're becoming. So many people fear that moment, that realization that no one is coming. But what if that's the greatest gift life ever gives you? What if it's the spark that burns the whole lie to the ground? The truth is, when you stop waiting for permission, you begin to rewrite the rules. You start showing up different. You speak like you matter. You walk like you belong. You act like you've already earned it. Because deep down, you finally believe. You don't need anyone's permission to rise. There comes a moment, after the pain, after the silence, after the waiting, when you look in the mirror and finally ask the most important question of your life. What if I gave myself permission? Permission to try, permission to speak, permission to fail, permission to be seen. Not because someone said you're ready, but because you're tired of waiting. That's where power begins. Not from applause, not from titles, not from a system that decides who's worthy, but from a single, radical, rebellious decision. You say yes to yourself. You stop seeking it from them. You stop chasing validation like it's oxygen. And for the first time, you realize something no one ever told you. You are the gatekeeper. You are the one who chooses if you go forward or stay stuck. You've always been the one. You just forgot your power. And maybe it's because you were taught to put others first. Maybe you were raised in a culture that said humble means invisible. Maybe you learned to dim your light so others wouldn't feel small. But shrinking doesn't serve anyone. And saying yes to yourself isn't arrogance. It's alignment. You were not born to be passive in your own story. You were not meant to play background in a life you were designed to lead. So when you say yes to yourself, it's not just a word, it's a declaration. A declaration that you will no longer ask for permission to show up. That you are done apologizing for your dreams. That you will no longer tone yourself down to make others comfortable. Because here's what the world never tells you. No one will believe in you until you do. And that belief starts with a whisper. I'm allowed to try. I'm allowed to begin. I'm allowed to be powerful. That's how the shift begins. Not with external change, but with internal revolution. And yet, when you start moving, when you begin stepping into that power, something unexpected happens. You look around. And no one's clapping. Here's what they don't prepare you for. The silence. You think once you say yes to yourself, the world will cheer. You imagine people rushing to support you, to share your message, to celebrate your decision. But often, they don't single quotes T. No one notices. No one reposts. No one congratulates you. And for a moment, you start to doubt again. Does my voice even matter if no one hears it? Yes, yes, it does. Because validation doesn't make you valuable. Presence does. The simple, bold, relentless act of showing up, even when they scroll past, even when they ignore you, even when it feels like you're shouting into a void. Because it's in those moments, when you speak without applause, when you act without recognition, that your character is forged. You stop performing. You stop adjusting your message just to please. You speak not to be liked, but to be true. And that's when your voice starts to carry weight, not because it's loud, but because it's real. Do you want to know what separates the great from the forgotten? The great ones kept speaking, even when no one listened. The great ones kept showing up, even when the seats were empty. The great ones kept creating, even when no one cared, because they understood something that can't be taught in any classroom or measured by any metric. Greatness starts in the dark, in the unseen, in the ignored, in the lonely. And when you understand that, you stop chasing claps and start chasing calling. You realize the dream wasn't about attention. It was about expression. It was about becoming who you are, fully, freely, without permission or applause. So even if no one claps, you keep going. Even if they don't notice yet, you keep building. Even if your voice shakes, you keep speaking, because your greatness doesn't depend on being seen. It depends on you showing up anyway. We live in a world obsessed with labels. From the moment you're born, society begins the work of classification. You're told who you are. You're told what you're capable of. And worse, you're told what you aren't. You're too quiet, too loud. Too young. Too old. Too broken. Too much. Not enough. And somewhere along the way, those labels stop being opinions. They become your identity. But here's the hard truth. They are born from fear, from limitation, from someone else's unfinished story. And if you're not careful, you'll wear them like a second skin. You'll accept them as fact. You'll start to move within the box that someone else built for you, never realizing that the box was never locked. You just forgot how to kick it open, because the world is quick to tell you what you can't do, quick to remind you of your failures, your flaws, your setbacks. But no one gets to define your limits except you. Just because someone can't see your vision doesn't mean you don't have one. Just because they couldn't do it doesn't mean you can't. Just because the system hasn't made space for you doesn't mean you don't belong. They will call you unqualified until you build something so undeniable. They have no choice but to listen. They will call you too ambitious until your vision changes lives. They will call you crazy until you're proven right. But none of that matters unless you believe them, because the most dangerous label is the one you internalize. It's not what they say that limits you. It's what you repeat to yourself when no one's watching. I'm not ready. I'm not good enough. I'm not like them. I'm not meant for more. Those are not your thoughts. Those are echoes of conditioning, inherited limits, second-hand doubt. And it's time you return them to sender, because breaking free doesn't begin with shouting louder. It begins with believing deeper. There is an enemy more subtle than failure, more accepted than mediocrity, more dangerous than rejection. That enemy is permission. And I'm not talking about the kind that comes from others. I'm talking about the way we've trained ourselves to ask before we act. We ask before we speak. We shrink. Before we leap, we hesitate. We've been trained to be polite with our potential, like greatness needs to knock softly and wait patiently to be noticed. But here's the reality. The life you want is not waiting on permission. It's waiting on action. And most of the time, the thing holding you back isn't your talent, your past, or your circumstances. It's the deeply rooted belief that says, I need someone to tell me it's okay to go. But what if no one ever does? What if the approval you're waiting for never comes? What if the people you think you need to impress never notice? What if the system never opens the door for you? Then what? Do you just stop? Do you shrink again? Do you sit quietly in the background of your own story? Or do you realize that permission has always been a disguise for fear? Fear of judgment. Fear of failure. Fear of standing out. Fear of what happens if you try and fall flat on your face. But hear me clearly. Fear doesn't keep you safe. It keeps you silent. Fear doesn't protect your future. It steals it. And every time you wait for someone to say go, you lose another moment. Another chance. Another opportunity to step into what's already yours. Because greatness doesn't come to the polite. It comes to the bold, the unapologetic, the ones who move with fire in their chest even when their voice shakes. The ones who act without a green light because they are the green light. So let me ask you, how long will you keep asking? How long will you keep waiting for someone to tell you you're allowed to be powerful? Allowed to build, allowed to rise. Allowed to change your life. What would happen if, for once, you stopped asking and started becoming? Because no one can give you permission to be great. That's a decision only you can make. And the moment you stop waiting is the moment you start rising. You've spent your whole life being told to earn your place. Wait your turn, climb the ladder, build credibility, gain experience, prove yourself, and then maybe, just maybe, someone will say you belong. But the truth is this: you don't earn belonging, you embody it. You don't wait to be crowned before you act like royalty. You walk into the room like you were born to be there, because deep down, you were. This isn't about arrogance. It's about alignment. It's not about pretending. It's about remembering who you were before the world taught you to doubt it. You don't wait to feel qualified to speak with power. You don't wait for a title to lead. You don't wait for a crowd to walk with purpose. You show up unapologetically because greatness doesn't ask, am I allowed? It declares, I'm here. But let's be honest, this is hard. Because it's one thing to say I belong. It's another thing to live like it when everything around you says otherwise. When you walk into rooms where no one looks like you, when you speak in spaces where your voice has never been heard, when you step into circles that weren't designed for you, the temptation is to shrink. The instinct is to over-explain, to tone it down, to seek approval. But here's what you must understand. The moment you own your space is the moment the room begins to shift. Not because they gave you permission, but because you stopped asking for it. You don't wait to be invited to greatness. You walk in and build a seat for yourself at the table. Or better yet, build your own table. Because the world rarely tells you you belong. It waits for you to say it first. And the louder you say it, through your action, your presence, your persistence, the more undeniable you become. And that leads us to one of the most powerful, most terrifying, and most liberating truths of all. Let's be real. We all have that voice, the one that whispers, not yet, you need more time. You need more training. You need more money, more support, more experience, more confidence. That voice is there certainly. Below is the expanded version of points 9 and 10 from your motivational speech. You don't need permission to be great. This part explores the reality of isolation on the path to greatness, and how your courage becomes a light for others, emotionally powerful, easy to follow, and deeply relatable. There's something people rarely tell you about the journey to greatness. It's not crowded. It's not loud. And it's not comfortable. It's quiet. It's lonely. It's misunderstood. Because when you choose to chase more, to step beyond average, to live with conviction, you will automatically begin to walk a road fewer people are willing to take. And when you do, they'll start asking questions. Why are you working so hard? Why don't you just settle? Why are you so obsessed with this dream? Why can't you just be content? And it hurts. Not because they doubt your path, but because deep down, part of you is still seeking to be understood. But here's the truth. Greatness isn't built in applause. It's forged in isolation. You're going to lose people. You're going to be ignored. You're going to be the only one who sees what you see. That's not failure. That's a filter. The higher you rise, the smaller the circle gets. And that can feel crushing if you're not prepared for it. Because loneliness doesn't whisper. It screams. It makes you question if you've made a mistake. It makes you wonder if the price is too high. It makes you consider going back to the comfort you walked away from. But hear me. Do not go back. Because greatness always demands solitude before recognition. The wilderness comes before the stage. The shadows come before the spotlight. And in that season, when no one gets it, when no one claps, when even your closest people don't understand why you keep going anyway. You don't need everyone to understand your vision. You just need the strength to carry it. You weren't called to be comfortable. You were called to be impactful. And often, impact begins where popularity ends. But here's the beautiful part of walking that lonely road. If you stay the course, if you don't fold, if you keep showing up with purpose, you become something powerful. You see, at first, people will doubt you. They'll question you. They'll criticize you. They'll watch you from a distance. But as you keep rising, not with arrogance, but with authenticity, something begins to happen. People who once doubted you begin to wonder, if they can do it, maybe I can too. Suddenly, you're not just chasing your dream. You're becoming evidence. You're becoming inspiration. You're becoming permission. Because someone out there is watching you, silently, secretly, maybe even skeptically. And what they need more than anything is to see someone like them do something like this. They don't need another speech. They need a living example. They need to see that it's possible to break cycles. To rise from nothing. To fail and still keep walking. To be told you're not to live in a generation that's been fed a dangerous illusion. That somehow, just wanting something is enough. We scroll through success stories, highlight reels, viral moments, and we start to believe that one day the world will just give us our shot. That one day we'll be discovered. That one day someone will pull us out of the shadows and into the light. But here's the brutal, freeing, necessary truth. The world doesn't owe you anything. Not success. Not validation. Not applause. Not a second chance. Life is not fair. It's not predictable. And it's not gentle with those who sit and wait. But don't mistake that truth for discouragement. Don't hear that and sink, because here's the power hidden inside it. If the world doesn't owe you greatness, then you stop waiting, you stop expecting, you stop resenting, and you start creating. You start moving like someone who owes it to themselves to rise. You owe it to the little version of you, the one who used to dream without fear, the one who believed anything was possible, the one who hadn't yet been scarred by rejection, or muted by failure, or tamed by the world's opinions. You owe it to the people who never got the chance, the ones who didn't survive, the ones who had the heart but not the help, the ones who are gone now, but if they were here, would scream at you not to waste a single breath. And most of all, you owe it to the future version of you who's waiting to be born. That version who is stronger, louder, wiser. That version who lives boldly because you stopped waiting and started building. But none of that happens unless you make one final, radical decision when everything else fades, when the spotlight dims, when the crowd goes quiet, when no one's watching. What will keep you going? Not motivation. Not approval. Not even talent. The only thing that keeps you alive in the fire is purpose. Purpose is the reason you rise when your body wants to stay down. It's the thing that makes pain tolerable and struggle meaningful. It's the why that makes the how possible. And here's the truth. Permission and purpose don't coexist. Permission asks, am I allowed to be great? Purpose declares, I was born to do this. Permission waits. Purpose moves. Permission fears judgment. Purpose outlasts it. You don't need everyone to believe in you. You don't need every door to open. You don't even need to feel ready. You just need to be anchored in something bigger than yourself. Because when you have purpose, you stop performing. You stop proving. You stop pretending. You begin to speak differently, walk differently. Show up with a fire that no one gave you and no one can take away. And when people see it, they'll ask, who gave you the right to do this? And you'll look them in the eye and say, purpose did. Because you were never waiting for a green light. You were never waiting for a title. You were never waiting for them to believe in you. You just forgot that you already had enough to begin.